Alex Ramosa here from Acquisition.com, CEO and founder. We have a portfolio of companies and we help $3 to $10 million at minimum companies scale to $30 million plus in 3 to 5 years for an exit. So they only have to get rich once. We are the guys who help you make your last dollar you ever need to make, not your first dollar. That being said, if you're not one of those people, then this is what this training is for you. All right. My goal is to get you to $3 million absolutely free because I just want to earn your trust. That is my transparent goal. And I want to help anyone who doesn't have anything make money, and you don't even have to buy these, expensive coaching programs. You don't have to buy a course. You don't have to buy anything. You can just use this stuff, and I can promise you, it's probably better than the guys who make less than we do doing this. So let's rock and roll into number 7. This is from the offers training, which you can see at acquisition.com if you want it. It's absolutely free. You don't have to put an email in. It's just yours. Enjoy it. We covered bonuses. We covered the market, charging what it's worth, getting the value right, the Grand Slam offer part 1 and part 2. This is the problems and solutions and what we're going to fulfill, and then how to structure bonuses and get other people's products to make you money. All right. So the next is guarantees. All right. So really, really, really important. All right. Guarantees can make or break a business. If you have a really compelling guarantee, it can 2, 3, 4x sales. Huge leverage point on selling. All right. And so we want to make guarantees that are worth their weight in gold. Okay. So your offer might not be actually making money because it's too risky for your prospect to buy it. They don't think it'll work for them, all right? Or they're afraid that it might not work for them. And so there's components of how you can improve your offer and make it irresistible by reversing risk, right? If someone literally had no risk to do anything, that's why free is so compelling, is that there's no risk. That's why free converts 9 times higher than not free, right? It's because free reverses risk. And so guarantees are kind of like the back end version of that. So there's free on the front end and you could guarantee on the back end. And so you can reverse risk in 2 ways. And I'm going to show you how to do it. Okay. So the first type of guarantee is an unconditional guarantee. This is a guarantee that, as it states, has no conditions. It's a, for any reason, money back, ask no questions guarantee. The second type of guarantee are conditional guarantees. These come in a lot more flavors. The unconditional guarantee is very straightforward. It's just no questions asked, right? The conditional guarantees have terms and conditions to them. That being said, they can actually be some of the strongest things for closing deals. And yes, since you asked, you can stack these guarantees and have multiple guarantees in a single offer, which is pretty cool. The third type of guarantee are anti-guarantees and performance-related offers. So I'm going to get to both of those because those are what I would consider implied guarantee. This is an anti-guarantee, meaning all sales are final. These are unconditional and conditional. All right, so those are the things we're going to cover in guarantees. Hopefully, when you're thinking through your own offering, you think, how can I combine these aspects of the business and make my offer more compelling? All right. At the very end, I'm going to show you about naming guarantees. Okay. So always be bold about your guarantees, whatever they are. You should own your position. All right. And so there's always a winnable position in the marketplace. All right. So let me give you an example. So if I were trying to compete against, me for our software, right, Alan, I would say, because we're far more expensive than everyone else, and we're pretty big. That business does 1.4 a month. And if I were competing against me as a smaller player, I would say, Alex isn't going to give you any attention. He doesn't care about you. You're just a number to him. Like with me, you're going to get all this personalized service, right? That's what, like, he's outdated. He hasn't, he hasn't been doing this like in the trenches in a long time, blah, blah. That's what I would do to try and, discredit me, right? Now, my position would be, why would you trust a guy who hasn't built a business? I've scaled 5 of these, so I think I know a little bit more. The reason that we're number 1 in the space is because we are the best at it. And so do you want to go to the guy who's untested, or do you want to go to the restaurant that has 4,000 5-star reviews? Which one do you want to go to, right? And so there's always a position. Every position has advantages and disadvantages. And so that is like every one of these has a position to it. So if I had an all sales are final position, then I would say, listen, if you're the type of person who needs a guarantee, then this is not for you. Like, we're looking for A players. And if you don't identify with that, that's okay. Or that would be one way of positioning. Another way would say, due to the nature of the information that we're giving you, or the nature of the program or the opportunity, we're going to be exposing some stuff that can't be unseen, right? And so once you see this stuff, all sales are final, because like you will get the value no matter what the moment you get into it, because we're going to be exposing some proprietary information that's back end that no one else has access to, right? And so that would be a reason to make sales final, right? And so that would be like, all of these positions have a position of strength, okay? So let's start with unconditional guarantees, all right? I 100% word for word lifted this from Jason Fladland. You're just such a G. I love you. You're such a savage. I worded it differently when I would sell our unconditional guarantee. And I'll tell you how I worded it versus this way. I like both of them. You can use whichever one you like. But unconditional guarantee, all right? So this is guarantee times time. I'll say the way I said it, and I'll say the way that I heard him say it. I just think it's brilliant. If you can, go buy his webinar course. It's phenomenal. But anyways, buy any of his stuff. But anyways, he says, I'm not asking you to decide yes or no today. I'm asking you to make a fully informed decision. That is all right? The only way you can make a fully informed decision is on the inside, not the outside. So you get on the inside and see everything is what we say on this webinar is truly valuable. Now you could replace webinar with this sales call or this conversation, whatever. And then if it is, then that's when you decide to keep it. If it's not for you, no hard feelings. You will then, after signing up at XYZ URL, or like by signing this paper today, be able to make a fully informed decision that this isn't for you. But you can't make the decision right now for the same reason you don't buy a house without looking at the inside, right? And know this, whether it's 29 minutes or 29 days from now, if you're not happy, I'm not happy, right? And for whatever reason you want your money back, you can get it because I only want to keep your money if you're happy, all right? And all you have to do is go to Support XYZ, give me my money, and in short order, we will send it back to you, all right? You can only make this kind of guarantee when you're confident that what you have is the real deal. And I'm very confident that when you sign up at XYZ, you're going to get exactly what you need to dream outcome, right? And so this is the way that he positioned it, the way that I have positioned it in a lot of sales conversations, because this is obviously a little bit suited for webinars. We do all of our sales via phone. I think that the biggest piece to remember is this first line or two, because, let's be real, a lot of times you're not going to memorize stuff. You should, but if you're starting out, you might not have that skill set yet. Is just saying, listen, I'm not asking you to say yes or no today. I'm just asking you to make an informed decision, right? Which you can only do on the inside. And the beauty of that is that people love delaying decisions. And so you actually associate delaying a decision with a purchasing decision. So in order for you to not make a decision, you have to buy, which is brilliant. And that's why, Jason is so good at what he does. That being said, for us, if you have a money-back guarantee, and this is why you have to own your position. So if you have a money-back guarantee, a satisfaction guarantee, a no questions asked guarantee, you need to own it. It needs to be prominently featured. You need to stand by it. Okay. And so for us, I positioned it very much like a trial. I said, listen, there's 2 no risk options for you today. All right. Option 1 is you can walk out the door. Option 2 is you can buy today. Right. And at the end of the program, if you don't think it's worth it for you, then you get, you got all this training, all this extra stuff absolutely free. Right. And you can tell me on the last day you don't think it's worth it for you. All right. Fair enough. And now at this point, I would ask fair enough. And a lot of times they say yes. If they still say no, I'm like, listen, well, either of these options are zero risk to you, but only one of them has the potential to get you where you want to go. So you have option 1, 0 risk, and 100% guaranteed to not get where you want to go. The other option also has no risk, but has a very high likelihood of getting you where you want to go. Which one do you want to choose? Right. And by doing that, I eliminated risk on both decisions and said only one of them can get you the outcome you're looking for. And so by doing that, by making this decision today, you're actually choosing a no risk option that's going to get you where you want to go. All right, that is the value of unconditional guarantees. You can really think about this like a trial. Now, you might think, well, oh man, I'm going to get all these people to refund. It's a math question. Most times, especially if you have a service component to your offering, then the likelihood that someone is going to refund or ask or request a refund is very low. I made this offer 4,000 times, and I only had 2 people take me up on a money back guarantee out of 4,000 plus. So the likelihood, if you do a good job, that it will cost you is very, very low. That being said, do it for a handful. And if you want, you can reserve it for only when you need to close the deal. So if you're closing over the phone or you're closing in person, if someone's hesitant, then you can throw it in, right? And push them over the edge, which is oftentimes how I did it. I didn't do it on every sale. I did it on the sales that were on the fence. All right. Now, I should have recognized the 2 people that ended up, I still remember them, that said no. I pretty much stayed in the office with them for like an hour and a half to get them to make the decision, and I probably should have just let them go. And so understand that the math behind the guarantee is it's a calculated risk, all right? So let me just give you an example. So let's say that normally you're selling, if you do 100 sales, you get 5 refunds, all right? Just whatever. The numbers are illustrative, all right? So that means 95 net sales on 100 sales. Now, let's say you do the same offer with a guarantee and you make 130 sales, right? And you get 13 refunds. That's 10%. So we doubled our percentage of people who refund. So that's a lot, right? We went from 5% to 10%. All right. But net, we had 13 refunds, and so we netted 117 sales. So it's 95 net sales versus 117 net sales. So it's a 23% increase in sales by adding the guarantee. All right. And so that's how we have to look at this. Is it a calculated risk? And inherently it is your business. So you should have more data than your customers do. Right. And the more bullish you can be about this, the more convincing it is. And the more people, and the beauty of this type of offer that I like from a psychological standpoint is I'd say, listen, and I used to say this all the time when I was selling prospects in person. I'd say, listen, I can only give this type of guarantee if we knew that we were good. Otherwise I wouldn't have the lights on and like this place would be empty. Right. So I know I can give this guarantee with confidence because I know you're going to love it. Right, and you're going to achieve what you want. Because at the end of the day, if you hit this goal, you're gonna ask for a refund. They'll be like, hell no. We're like, right. So let's just get you started. You can't make a decision now anyway, so you might as well get started. I'm reversing the risk for you, so let's get you going. Right? Fair enough? Close. Right? Boom. Okay. So unconditional guarantees, number 1. Number 2 is conditional guarantees. All right. If you don't achieve X in Y time, we will. So this is an important component of a conditional guarantee. And this is what I see a lot of people make mistakes on when they're marketing guarantees is that they don't actually tell what the condition is, right? You have to tell the condition to give it teeth. And so like if we say at 100 sales guaranteed, but it's like over what time period or what? Now, you might not be able to say a time period based on advertising laws, etc. It depends on the platform. But if you can't say it, you should say it, right? Legally. And for the components, if you don't achieve X in Y time, they need to know what the teeth is. What are they going to get if they don't? So a famous example of this is the Domino's guarantee, 30 minutes or it's free, which is very clearly stated. Like if you order the pizza and it's not at your door in 30 minutes, the pizza's free, right? So they understand the or what, right? You have to make sure that in the condition you say what the or what is, all right? So these are the conditional guarantees that I have personally used, okay? And these are some of my favorite ones, and so you can lift them and use them however you want. All right, so one is the outsized refund. So that's like, hey, these are the conditions. So if you go through the program, you watch all the videos, you attend all the coaching calls, and you don't achieve X, I'll give you 3 times what the cost is of this program. Holy cow, right? And I can say that because I'm very confident that if you do all those things, you're going to be successful. Because the thing is we don't want to make the conditional guarantee something that's it's unrealistic for them to do it, right? Because then it falls into the unbelievable category. It's like, well, I'm not going to do that, right? So you want to make it stuff that's really reasonable. Now, the way that I factor my conditional guarantees is around activation, all right? And so what that means is when a customer, we know, for example, that within our gym consulting business, if someone makes a sale of $2,000 or more in the first 7 days, the likelihood that they stay on with us for a year is super high, right? The same thing with Alan, the software. If someone, there's 3 points of activation. First is that it is live and functioning, that they're seeing the stats the way they're supposed to be. The third is that they get their first person to show up for their client. And the third point of activation is they realize that they're making more money using a performance model than they are from a retainer model. So those are the 3 points of activation. And so we target around each of those points to move them through the process so that they are likely to stay. And so if I were making a conditional guarantee, then I would formulate the conditions around the things that are going to create those activation points. All right, this is really, really cool stuff. Like this is the stuff that will make you a lot of money. All right. So this is how we structure this stuff. So the first is the outsized refund guarantee. All right. The second is a service guarantee. Love this guarantee. All right. Which is simply if you don't achieve X outcome by Y period of time, I'll continue to work with you for free until you do, as long as you X, Y, and Z beforehand. Now the X, Y, and Z, one of them is going to be that you made all your payments on time. If someone doesn't make their payments, then we're not, the guarantee's void. Beyond that, you have to show up to all of the sessions that we have. If I'm guaranteed that we're going to fix your marriage, you have to show up to all the therapy sessions and you have to do the homework between the sessions. These are things that are activation points because I probably know that all of the people, you start with the people who are successful and you say, what did these people do that people who weren't successful didn't do? And you look at that and then you reverse the activation from that. So if you're like, well, I don't know what's going to activate my customers, look at your best customers, look at the things they did in their first period of time that other people didn't do, and then build that around your activation process to get them on board, to get them engaged, and get them, a big success, and then referring and build testimonials and all that kind of stuff. All right. So the guarantees guide your prospect to ideal actions. It tells them exactly what we want them to do. All right. And so the service guarantee works really well, especially if you compare that with like additional purchases. So for example, when I had the bonuses I was mentioning in one of my other videos, if someone's going to get X outcome, they have to use the preferred vendors that we want them to use. Because otherwise, if you're using someone else's stuff, I don't know if it's going to work. And it's not because I get an affiliate commission from it. It's just because like I pick those products because I know they work, right? And so one of the cool things though is that if someone is using all of the vendors that we tell them to use as a result of using a service-based guarantee, then even if I have to fulfill on the service-based guarantee, I'm still getting paid from all of the other vendors that I referred the business to. So I actually can still do it at cost or even profitably during that period of time. So it's lower risk. That being said, the service-based guarantee is one of the strongest guarantees, but the things that make it or break it are going to be the conditions around which you build it. All right. The third is the modified service guarantee. So this is saying that you have the service guarantee like we said before, but it's going to be modified slightly for a period of time, or they're going to get a lower version of the service after X period. All right, so it's very similar. Instead of getting everything, you get some stuff. Credit-based guarantee. So this one I like a lot, which is if for some reason you're not satisfied or you didn't do X, Y, and Z, I'll actually give you 100% of this money towards any other program that we have. That's a credit-based guarantee. A personal service guarantee. The more edified you are in your respective space. For example, if I was working, if I had, one of our businesses, I would say half the businesses people know, half of my portfolio people know I exist. The other half, the clients don't know who I am. But in a business where they do know who I am and I've been edified in their minds, then I would say, hey, if you haven't achieved this outcome, I will personally work with you one-on-one, or I'll give you a one-on-one call I'll just give you a one-on-one call, right? So something like that can be perceived as very valuable depending on how edified you are in your prospect's mind, because your personal service might be, we charge 12,500 an hour for an hour of my time that I don't do it anymore because now we just work with portfolio companies. But the point is that that's going to be perceived, the value of that's going to be perceived maybe even more than the cost of the product. All right. Next one. This is a great one for events. I actually got this from Frank Kern. Hotel and airfare perks guaranteed. So basically, hey, because what's the cost? We're reversing risk around. Well, it's the time of the travel, it's the hotel and the airfare. So I'm not only going to guarantee that you're going to get value from my workshop, but I'm also going to pay you for your hotel and your airfare if you don't think it's worth it, right? And you could do this by like day one. So if you have a 2-day workshop, you can say by the end of the day one they have to execute that. So that'd be a way of putting a condition in there so that if you want to do more stuff on day 2, they have to leave halfway through, which also makes it less likely to do it. But it also, from a selling standpoint, it makes sense because you're like, well, you can't say you've been here 2 days. Like after the first day, you're going to know if this is for you or not, right? Next one, I like this one a lot, is the wage payment guarantee, which is, hey, if this program doesn't do what we're saying it's going to do, I will pay you for your time, for all the time that was spent trying to do this program. The reason I like this is because, one, it's going to be based on the level of fulfillment that they did. So I can see on the back end if someone consumes services, and I can see on their schedule if they showed up for calls, because that's based on having good data tracking for fulfillment. So I can see that we spent 2 hours on the phone with them and they spent 6 hours going through materials, and I say, cool, so we have 8 hours of wage payment that we need to refund for you. Just send us your tax return from last year and we will divide it out and we will pay that for you. Most people won't even do that, but it's sexy, right? It's different. The next is a release of service guarantee. So this works really well if you have some sort of condition or contract, right? So if you have a contract, it's a 12-month contract or something like that, then you can say, hey, if we don't get you X by Y, then you no longer are obligated to pay us for the remainder of the program, right? So that reverses risk around the longevity of the contract. Sometimes you don't want to do something like that because it might take time. Like if you're in an SEO space, it takes time to get SEO to work. And so we want to make sure that the way the guarantee is worded is going to be aligned with how we can provide value, right? Delayed second payment guarantee, I like this one a lot, which is, hey, if you don't achieve X outcome by a Y period of time, let's say that's the first week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 5 weeks, you won't have to pay until you hit that, right? So it's like you're not out of the agreement, but until you lose your first 5 pounds, you don't have to pay me again, right? Until you get your first sale, you don't have to pay me again. Until you get your first lead, you don't have to pay me again. Until like whatever the first activation point is. And again, we tie these things to activation points, things that are going to be likely that they're going to want to stay on with us because they achieved a precursor to a bigger result. Right? And so it'd say, hey, until you lose 5 pounds, like you can pay today and you're not going to pay your next monthly payment unless you've lost at least 5 pounds. So once you lost 5 pounds, then you can keep paying us, right? It's a nice guarantee because it reverses the risk around what if this doesn't work, all right? And this is the first outcome guarantee, which is similar. It's just that you don't have to pay at all until the outcome versus the delayed second payment, which is we're going to delay it as long as. It's similar, but there's just a different nuance. Okay. Those are conditional guarantees that I have used. I like all of them. These are not exhaustive. There are many more guarantees that have been out there. The more creative you can be with the guarantee, the better. These are all ones that I have used and have used well. I think I ordered these in order of I really like 9 and 10. I really love 1, 2, 1 and 2. The credit-based one we've used a ton of. These are all guarantees that I've used, but you just need to reorganize it around these conditions. If you don't achieve X in Y time, we will Z, right? And you make the conditions the things that are going to make the person successful. Okay. So anti-guarantee, all sales are final. I covered this earlier. The point is that you need to own the position and explain why it is that way. And sometimes when you do that, you can actually enhance the value of the thing. Like if you have this top secret thing, then once you get exposed to it, you can't unsee. These are proprietary things that as soon as you see them, it also makes it feel like there's less effort, time, and sacrifice to achieving the result, which means that's why it's final. So it's kind of like a damaging admission, right? In some ways. So it's like, hey, we don't guarantee this. At all because the stuff is so powerful, right? And so from a psychological standpoint, it makes the statement more believable because we're telling them why, okay? And then the final type of guarantee, hopefully you can see it, is performance/value based. And this is actually one of my preferred methods of guaranteeing things. And it's because I believe that all high performers want to do performance, right? These are the relationships that I have with all the companies that I work with personally, the portfolio companies, and it's based on value, right? And I think winners always want to do it based on value, because fundamentally they don't want to have a cap on their income. So it's like if I can get you from $5 million to $30 million a year, and we can take you from $3 million in enterprise value to $50 million in enterprise value, then it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to charge $50,000 for that. It's just not, you know what I mean? It doesn't really make sense for me. So if you want to build a business, you can build it around performance stuff. The software business that we have is all purely based on performance. The supplement company is only based on performance. So these are all things where there's an implied guarantee, because if the outcome is not achieved, they owe you nothing, right? And that's kind of the beauty of this, is that you have an uncapped upside and there's no downside risk for the prospect. Now, the important part about when you make these types of agreements is highly qualifying the prospects to make sure that they can be successful, because otherwise you are fronting a lot of time, right, in doing this. And that's why over time, as you get better and better, that is the way to do it. The obvious second thing is you actually have to be good. If you're not good at achieving the result on a consistent basis, then you shouldn't do performance, at least not in the beginning. This is me being candid with you. I think everyone should be exceptional at what they do, or you shouldn't sell it. But I also understand that people's understanding of excellence changes over time because you get better and your understanding of what excellence is improves, right? I can tell you the first time I talked to a $250,000 employee versus a $30,000 employee, there's no disrespect to anyone who's at either of those levels, but they were more advanced. They had more value to provide. And so too will you be at a $3 million entrepreneur level versus a $30 million versus a $100 million entrepreneur level. There's different levels to the game and different levels to understanding of value and how you can provide it. And so make sure that you're good at what you do, which is kind of the point of what I'm saying here. All right. And so this is an implied guarantee. There's anti-guarantees, there's conditional guarantees, and then there's the unconditional guarantee. And so the idea here is that what we want to do is you can have all of these guarantees and stack them. You can say, hey, I'm not asking you to make a decision today. I'm just asking you to give it a shot. And if that's in 30 days, and if 90 days you haven't made at least 100 sales, or if you haven't lost 20 pounds in 90 days, not only that, and you attended all of our, whatevers, or you haven't fixed your marriage in 90 days, or you haven't doubled your sex, life in 90 days, I will give you more than the cost, 2 times the cost of the program, right? But you have to attend all the sessions, you have to do all the homework, etc. Right? And so this one is you don't have to do anything. This one is if you do this stuff, and so these tend to work really well together. We do this one is a shorter duration, and then this one is a longer duration. So it's like this is your first 30 days, this is 60 days, or this is 90 days, or this is 6 months, whatever. You tie the guarantees together. Now, if you do an unconditional guarantee, you can obviously be smart about it and put parts of your value after the guarantee period is over, so that there's something to also hold them through that window of time. All right, and then you can't stack an anti-guarantee, obviously, but you can stack unconditional and conditional guarantees, and you can stack unconditional, conditional, and performance programs. All right, we already talked about the reason why all sales are final. The implied guarantee, which is the value-based guarantee, we already talked about. There's performance that you can do in terms of units, which would be like B2B, be like only pay me X per X per sale, X per show. B2C might be X per pound lost, might be X per. You want to have some kind of unit, right? So that would be one version of performance. Another one is a percentage of performance. Rather than based on units, you do it based on percentage. So I got 10% of top line, right? A lot of e-commerce agencies do stuff like that. I get 20% profit share. I get 25% of revenue growth from baseline. So it's like you drive a baseline and then you have growth percentages. And so there's different ways that you can spin this based on percentages versus units. This is what I think through when I'm thinking about value-based billing and pricing, okay? And then finally, just profit share percentage, which is X% of profit or X% of gross profit, which is different because that's the incremental sale, the additional sale that happens. So that's rev share, profit share, performance based on units. All of those are examples of implied guarantees, because obviously if you aren't good at it, you wouldn't price that way, right? And then naming your guarantees. This is the last piece with guarantees is you want to have a cool name, right? So if you're going to give a guarantee, spice it up, right? Instead of using satisfaction or some other vanilla word, describe it more strongly. So here's a generic example, right? So a bad example would be like 30-day money back satisfaction guarantee. Better example would be using creative imagery. So it'd be like, in 30 days, if you wouldn't jump into shark-infested waters to get our product back, we'll return every dollar you paid. Another way of saying this, I got this from Talking More, love it or leave it, which I like that. I like that wording a lot. The next name or would be creative imagery. Number 2 would be like, hey, you'll get our famous Club a Baby Seal guarantee after 30 days of using our services. If you wouldn't Club a Baby Seal to stay as a customer, you don't have to pay a penny. So you can see how there's marketing behind some of these things that increases the perceived value and how much it stands out in the customer's mind. If I just say I have a 30-day money back guarantee, people forget what that even means, right? What does that mean? What it means is if you wouldn't jump into XYZ into shark-infested waters to get our product, then you will, you get what I'm saying, right? Okay. Cool. So naming guarantees. And then last piece is stacking guarantees, which is the advanced piece. I like doing both. You could do unconditional for 30 and then conditional for 3 times your money if you X, Y, and Z. When you stack these things, it's an advanced move. This is a calculated risk, but you should know that and just do your math. But what I like about this a lot is you can future pay someone based on the duration of your conditional guarantee. So if I have them, if I have a 6-month conditional guarantee, it seeds the idea that they're going to be staying for 6 months plus. It also gets them thinking about long-term success rather than short-term success, which I will tell you right now, if you can frame and attract prospects who want long-term success and not short-term success, you'll be far more successful and make more money, and you'll have way better customers, way better stick rate. The most successful campaign that Gym Launch ever ran, and we probably should run it again because, of course, like all entrepreneurs, something worked really well and we didn't do it again, was a campaign called the 1 Year Later campaign, which was I showed videos from clients who've been with us for over a year. and we just flooded the newsfeed with videos from people who've been with us over a year. And the thing is when you show 1 year later videos, I mean, the before and after on a year is huge. And what it does is it allows prospects who are new to already be future paced a year ahead of time. And they also come in with a year-long expectation. And so they're not saying you have to save my business tomorrow, right? It's saying I need to put these systems in place to grow my business over time. And those are going to be the people who are going to be wealthier in the long run. They're going to be easier to work with. And ultimately, they're going to be more successful and not make you want to kill yourself. So that's the advanced move of stacking guarantees. And yes, you could do conditional 6 month, 10x ROI if you X, Y, and Z. And you can stack 2 conditionals, right? You can do a 60-day conditional and a 6-month conditional, right? And again, you're going to stack the terms based on the things that you'd want them to do during that period of time. You're going to guide your prospects to be successful through the wording of your guarantees. All right. And right, I could do a first outcome guarantee with a second outcome guarantee of 30 days and 60 days, right? I could do small outcome of changing the terms if you only do X, and a big outcome of if you do XXX, right? So that's 2 different guarantees that are based on outcome, not based on time. All right. And so that is just a handful of examples of how you can stack guarantees. Hopefully you learn a lot more about guarantees than you've ever thought you even would ever need to know in your life. That is the point, is that there's levels to this game. That being said, you can find out more about these trainings and other trainings we have. They're all absolutely free at acquisition.com. There's no opt-in required. I just want you to succeed. And if you're a $3 to $10 million business and you're looking to scale and exit in 3 to 5 years and only have to get rich once, make the last dollar you ever need, then hit us up. Otherwise, keep being awesome, and I'll see you in the next video where we break down scarcity and urgency, which is how to decrease the decision-making time for your prospects to get them to buy today. All right, see you next video.